everyone to our Ethics of Treatment Approaches for Applied Behavior Analysis debates. I am Casey. I will be the introducer. We also have Maida. Wave, Maida. There we go. She'll be our summarizer. Emmeline will be our illustrator. Brandon is the researcher. And Emily is going to be taking the questions for our fielder, and we will each be discussing certain compliance codes regarding the debate as well. So what does ethics of treatment approaches mean? We will be examining some of the treatments used in applied behavior analysis and whether or not they are ethical based upon research and history. Dating back to the beginnings of ABA, there has been a wide range of ideas regarding ABA treatments, some of which have left a lasting scar upon the name of ABA. However, we intend to prove that with the coming about of the BACB compliance codes, the 7 core principles, as well as the use of evidence-based treatments, that applied behavior analysis is in fact an ethically sound science and uses only the most up-to-date and appropriate treatments available. Conversely, it will be mentioned that there have been several accounts of clients being treated unethically and even therapists behaving in a manner unbecoming of an analyst. However, using the compliance codes as well as legal findings, we will also attempt to prove how, even with these blemishes, ABA treatments as a whole are still ethically acceptable and based on a science that works. So to begin, our first, Maida will also be summarizing what we'll be discussing today. So Maida.
Okay. Applied behavior analysis hasn't always been ethical, and many regrettable experiences have happened in the past that make people question how ethical ABA really is. The good news is that this is not the case anymore. Behavior analysts follow a set of guidelines in order to make ABA ethical. ABA can also prove itself to be ethical when choosing appropriate treatments. Behavior analysts implement well-established interventions that are evidence-based and has been tested to be effective several times. Treatment fidelity is also taken into consideration when conducting treatment. As mentioned before, many years ago, behavior analysts focused on behavior modification without using effective treatments, and often turning to treatment procedures that were cruel and did more harm than good. Fortunately, that started to change when court cases started to address the right to enjoy basic privileges and refrain from the use of aversive treatments. Another factor that should be considered when deciding if ABA is ethical or not is who can deliver ABA treatment. Even though treatment can be conducted by people with little experience, training and supervision from a behavior analyst is required. And let's see. Also, different practices are maintained by the protocol created by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, which is what keeps professionals in this field practicing ethical procedures. So, and that is the summary of what we will be discussing today.
Okay. So our first point will center around BACB Compliance Code 1, which focuses on the responsible conduct of a behavior analyst. And Brandon will be discussing that point to start us off.
Okay. So the Compliance Code 1, which is responsible conduct of a behavior analyst, shows that behavior analysts maintain the high standards of professional behavior in the professional organization. This includes broadly being honest, showing integrity, being reliable, showing confidentiality, and having trustworthiness. This is the backbone of ABA, and without responsible conduct, you can't really go forward, so it's very important that this is important. And Compliance Code 1.2 is competence. 1.2a is behavior analysts provide services, teach, and conduct research only within the boundaries of their competence based on their education, their training, their supervised experience, or appropriate professional experience. Compliance Code 1.2b is behavior analysts provide services, they teach or conduct research in new areas or involving new techniques only after first undertaking appropriate study, training, supervision, and/or consultation from persons who are competent in those areas or techniques.
To help illustrate that compliance code a little bit further, here is a real-life example of an ethical dilemma regarding competence. A client is referred to a behavior analyst for a feeding intervention. The individual is a 17-year-old with a diagnosis of Down syndrome. The behavior analyst, let's say, has plenty of training and experience with feeding intervention and dietary behavior change. However, he doesn't have any experience or training in dealing with adolescents or clients with a diagnosis of Down syndrome. What should the behavior analyst do in this situation to follow this competency code of competence? He should refer this client to a colleague or another service provider that does have experience in this scope of practice.
Another important compliance code would be Compliance Code 1.04, which is integrity. It is important to have integrity because without it, you can't. All right, I'll redo that. Compliance Code 1.4 is integrity, and in 1.04a is behavior analysts are truthful and honest. Behavior analysts follow through on obligations and professional commitments with high-quality work and refrain from making professional commitments they cannot keep. Compliance Code 1.04b is the behavior analyst's behavior conforms to the legal and moral codes of the social and professional community of which the behavior analyst is a member. Compliance Code 1.4c is the activity of a behavior analyst falls under these guidelines only if the activity is part of his or her work-related functions or the behavior analytic in nature. Compliance Code 1.4d is if behavior analysts' ethical responsibilities conflict with the law, behavior analysts make known their commitment to these guidelines and take steps to resolve the conflict in a reasonable manner in accordance with the law. Now, there is some research that shows a pro for integrity in ethical standards. In a paper written by Bout and Hume, they discussed that in order for an intervention to legitimately be considered as an ABA intervention, it must have frequent assessments and measurements of its efficacy and implemented with fidelity. Now, however, there is also a con related with integrity, and this is in a paper written by Wheeler, Baggett, Fox & Company in 2006. They state the integrity of many intervention studies between the late 1980s and early 2000s is brought into question. This leads the author to come to some conclusions. This is a quote from the paper stating, "Relative lack of attention to treatment integrity is both surprising and worrisome." This is a very big problem because if there isn't integrity in the study, or if there isn't integrity in interventions, all interventions can become into question, and without a stable background of integrity, clients can't be sure that they're getting what they're told they're going to get. So it's very important to have integrity. Now, another important compliance code within Section 1 is 1.6, which is dual relationships and conflict of interests. Compliance Code 1.6a is in many communities and situations it may not be feasible or reasonable for behavior analysts to avoid social or other non-professional contacts with persons such as clients, students, supervisees, or research participants. Behavior analysts must always be sensitive to potential harmful effects or other contacts on their work and on those persons with whom they deal. Compliance Code 1.6b is a behavior analyst refrains from entering into a promising a personal, scientific, professional, financial, or other relationship with any such person if it appears likely that such a relationship reasonably may impair the behavior analyst's objectivity or otherwise interfere with the behavior analyst's ability to effectively perform his or her functions as a behavior analyst. 1.6c is if a behavior analyst finds that due to unforeseen factors, a potentially harmful multiple relationship has arisen, the behavior analyst's attempt to resolve it with due regard for the best interest of the affected person and maximal compliance with these guidelines. And that's it for mine. We will now go to Compliance Code Section 2, and Emily will take care of that one.
Okay, Section 2 goes over behavior analyst's responsibility to clients. One of the important parts of that one is 2.09, which deals with treatment and intervention efficacy. Part A states that behavior analysts must provide all relevant information about treatments to the client. Effective treatments are those which are scientifically supported and produce both long and short-term behavior change based on the client's individual needs. Part B states that behavior analysts have to decide what amount of treatment is necessary for a behavior change program to be effective and to meet the goals set within the program. The behavior analyst must then provide the supports needed for the client to receive said treatment or intervention. Part C states that when there is more than one effective treatment that could be appropriate for the client, other factors should be considered as well. These factors could include costs, risks and side effects, who will implement the treatment and their ability level to do so, and the client's personal preference for one treatment over another. The last point under 2.09 is Part D, and it kind of goes along with Part C. It says the behavior analyst must be prepared to answer questions regarding the factors that I mentioned to be considered for treatment.
To help illustrate this code further, hypothetically, an elementary school general education teacher has asked a behavior analyst to come into the classroom and create a behavior change plan for some of the non-compliant behaviors the teacher has seen from a student in her room. The teacher and the behavior analyst one-on-one, and the teacher explains briefly to the behavior analyst about the different behaviors that she has seen in the classroom. Before the analyst leaves the meeting, the teacher has requested that the analyst give recommendations right away. Due to the severity of the behaviors in the classroom, she wants fixed immediately. Would this be ethical of the behavior analyst to provide those recommendations at that first meeting? And as Emily stated, it would not be ethical. She would not be giving treatment efficacy if she were to provide those recommendations right away. She would need to be able to come up with scientifically supported treatments for the client based on observations and other assessments to determine the function and the reasons for the behaviors.
Another important section of Part 2 is 2.10, which is documenting professional work and research. Part A states that documentation must be kept by the behavior analyst in a professional and easily understandable fashion. This is necessary so that the client can receive appropriate treatments either in the future or from other professionals at the same time. Documentation must also be in compliance with guidelines set forth by the behavior analyst's workplace and in compliance with the laws by which all citizens in that area abide. Part B of 2.10 kind of restates a portion, a little bit of A, but it talks about the law and the organization's guidelines. It states that a behavior analyst is responsible for creating documentation so that detailed information can be collected and maintained throughout the treatment or intervention. The last part of 2.0 that I'm going to talk about is 2.11, which goes over records and data. Part A states that in all ways that a behavior analyst deals with records and data, so whether that's creating documents or storing documents or disposing of documents, they must comply with requirements of the BACB's professional and ethical compliance codes for behavior analysts, which is the document that we're summarizing right now, and the laws in the area in which the behavior analyst practices. Part B states that unless the laws in place in the behavior analyst area state differently, all records and data must be stored for at least 7 years.
Some research that backs Compliance Code 211 is a paper done by Jay Cooper entitled Applied Behavior Analysis. He states that 4 main assessment techniques that ensure the ethical collection of information are interviews, checklists, standardized testing, and direct observation. These 4 assessment techniques ensure that data is collected ethically and ensures collection.
Okay. We're not debating. So let's try something with the next one for Maida. My main concern is that we're almost done and we're only 18 minutes in. So I want to try something and see what you guys think about this. So when Maida is talking, it is Maida's turn, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So when Maida is talking, because when I'm listening to you guys, I have several questions that pop into my head of, well, what if this happened? Or how about, like for example, with like when Emily was just talking about data collecting and about how ethically we're supposed to ensure proper data collection and blah, blah. Well, the question that popped into my head was, well, what if we have somebody who isn't trained properly? Then how is the data, correctly being tracked? And so from that, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not debating. Like, we're literally just summarizing the compliance codes right now.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
That's all we're doing.
Yeah. So let's try that with Maida's section. See where it goes.
I also think that we're not even really close to all done. I still have, I'm done with the compliance code, but after Maida goes, there's still the fielding portion, and I have like 6 questions that need to be asked and answered during that.
True, but we're still not debating.
We're just kind of saying the compliance codes.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just presenting.
Exactly. We're presenting and summarizing compliance codes 1, 2, and 4, with some research to back up why they work almost, or something like that. This is supposed to be informal, conversational, like there should be a back and forth between, that's what a debate is. So what do you guys think about trying that with Maida's? And if you hear something and you think of a question, or you think of a counterpoint, like if you think of a counterpoint, because that's debating, if you think of a counterpoint to something Maida says, obviously politely wait until she finishes her point, and then interject your counterpoint. And then Maida, if you can't answer it, maybe one of us can answer it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So after you're done with like each like A or B, maybe wait like 2 or 3 seconds for someone to interject, and then if no one interjects, continue on to the next one. Because we want to seem like it's planned a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're not like cutting each other off and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah. I don't want to
yep.
do that. Cool. All right. So now we have Maida, who will be discussing Compliance Code 4, which is Behavior Analyst and the Behavior Change Program.
Okay, so I will be talking about Compliance Code 4.02, 4.08, and 4.10. So 4.02 is involving clients in planning and consent, which includes behavior analysts involving parents and the direct client in the planning process. Behavior analysts should also obtain consent for any behavior change that happens in the program. 4.08 is considerations regarding punishment procedures. So in Part A, behavior analysts are supposed to choose and recommend reinforcement instead of punishment procedures. B, in the case where punishment procedures are necessary, behavior analysts will take additional steps in order to make sure that appropriate behavior is reinforced. Part C is before considering punishment procedures, behavior analysts ensure that reinforcement-based procedures have already taken place. And this is different if behavior is dangerous and needs immediate use of punishment procedures. And last part, which is Part D, behavior analysts have to provide additional training to those that will be implementing aversive procedures. Aversive procedures are to be discontinued when no longer necessary. And Compliance Code 4.10 is avoiding harmful reinforcers. And behavior analysts avoid using items as reinforcers that might harm the client's health.
Okay. I'm sorry, real quick. So throughout that, I definitely had several things that popped into my head that I wanted to interject with, but I didn't know.
I think that it's okay to just say,
Well, I think we should
interject.
wait until you're done with like A or B and then interject. Like I had a question.
Maybe I'll give a few seconds to see if someone.
Exactly, because you don't want people to.
Okay.
It doesn't look professional if people are like kind of talking over each other.
Yes. Okay.
Also, for 4.08, I had research too, so you got to wait for me to do.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And then I have a visual that I'll present after Brandon's research for 4.08.
So I can go back. Should I go back to 4.08?
Well,
Yeah,
what?
I have an interjection about 4.08D as well, so we can try an interjection too.
Okay. So should I go back? Should I just read the whole thing again?
Just start
Can you state like what your interjection, I guess, for 4.08D is?
Oh, okay. So for 4.08D, she mentioned that in order to ensure that workers don't inflict punishment, training is involved. How is training assessed? Like, is there guidelines for specific training? What needs to be done in order to ensure that there isn't punishment? Like, what are the guidelines for punishment training?
That's a good question.
Really good question.
This is a good question. I think that does anyone have the answer to the question, or should I go ahead and?
I don't. The only thing that I am, I guess, not worried about, but is just with the interjections, try not to ask questions that are already on the question and answer thing for the fielding portion of it. In 4.08, D is specifically mentioned, and then Compliance Code 4.08 is mentioned in its entirety in another section of it. So I guess just make sure that when you are interjecting that you don't.
I think it would be better for a debate to interject, not wait till the end, because I feel like it's like a PowerPoint but in video.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then why don't you guys just the questions that I've already prepared for your interjections then?
Well, no, that doesn't make sense because we wouldn't have fielding questions. We're not.
There's still two at the end where Emma has the visual and Brandon has the research. I can ask those at the end, but otherwise that makes the preparation I did for the fielding portion pointless. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Well, why don't I don't think the fielding has to be really in a specific spot. I feel like you can if in a debate, people can ask questions during the presentation. So, I mean, you can ask the fielding questions during the debate, can't you?
So if there's a question on Emily's fielding prep questions about Compliance Code 4.08, that's when she could ask that question?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay.
Instead of at the end, because then it feels like we're just doing a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, it's pretty horrendous. So I think that would be awesome. Emily, would you feel comfortable doing something like that?
Yeah, that's fine. The only ones then that, I have two for 4.08. One is specifically 4.08D, so I can interject with those. And then the other ones, Casey, you said that you would answer the first two that were on there. Do you want me to interject with those because those are compliance codes, compliance code 1?
No, yeah, go for it. I just grabbed it up that way somebody would answer it. But it makes way more sense if we're already in the compliance code and then you ask it.
Yeah.
And then having that person do that. I had one more question though to add on to that. You could actually use some of the data that I put into the paper too. It was on the therapist not committing to their schedule. That, you know what I mean? Like canceling and things like that. That was brought up. I think in your points, Emily. Is that?
Under what part of it?
I don't remember. Or maybe it was.
I don't see it anyway.
It was in somebody's. But basically the question was, well, if something on the lines of it is if therapists can't commit to their schedule, how is treatment going to, how is that ethical treatment? And in the part of the paper that I wrote, I kind of answered that through one of the tables that I had, and it was that even though there were ethical issues with some of the therapists, as in a high turnover rate or not sticking to their schedules and canceling last minute and things like that. So even though those things happened, there were still great gains made as a result of the actual treatments and not the therapists themselves. So, and that was through research done through a questionnaire from the parents. So the parents said that, yeah, the therapists were sometimes kind of crazy, but my child still made immense progress in the areas that he or she needed to. So just another question that could be thrown out there, and I don't remember who dealt with that section about therapists sticking to what they need to stick to in their stuff.
Okay, so
Integrity, I think it may have been our,
So that's compliance code 1.04.
yeah. Yep, 1.04, integrity, behavior analysts follow through on obligations and contractual and professional commitments with high quality work and refrain from making professional commitments they cannot keep. So even if an analyst does not follow through on 1.04, the treatment could still work because based on the tables that I gave in the paper that I think you have, Emmeline.
I was just looking for them. I mean, what I have pulled up right now is the views on efficacy of punishment table and the view of ethics of, the views of ethics of punishment.
Okay, so maybe I didn't put that one in there.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't see that one in the paper.
That's okay though.
So you want me to interject with that question for?
Or I can interject with it.
I think you should interject on the questions.
Wait, who?
Emily.
Okay.
And then if someone else has like an extra question, then they can feel free to interject. But for the most part, Emily will just be interjecting the ones that she has already prepared. Is that correct?
yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so Casey, what was the question that you want me specifically to ask, I guess?
It was on hold on, I'm pulling
Why
up.
can't Casey ask it if she came up with the question?
Yeah, I mean, Casey could ask it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind at all.
Yeah, so Emily will ask the questions she already has, and then if we have other questions, we can just ask them too.
Here's the only thing is that I'm asking, and then I can more than answer it.
Oh,
I can ask that question, and then you can answer it. That's fine.
It was the De Janeiro Read and Lovett survey. That's what it was.
Okay.
From 2008.
So I'll be, because 1.04 is my section, so I'll say it. Then after everything 1.04, because I think I have, yeah. So after 1.04 is done, then Casey will ask a question.
No, I'll ask the question, and Casey will answer the question.
Yeah.
So will you ask me the question, and then I will say, I am not positive on this one, but I believe my partner Casey could give you an answer.
Or you can just say, does anyone want to take this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine, and then I'll interject with that. So the question is, let me look at the compliance code again. What happens if a behavior analyst does not follow through on obligations? How does that make the treatment ethical?
Okay.
And then, quick question, Casey, are you using the table?
I don't have to. I can just use based on the De Janeiro Read and Lovett survey from 2008, parents stated that, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, because I don't know, maybe I just wasn't looking at it right, but I was going to use that table for 4.8 as well, showing, like, talking about, like, punishment procedures and just saying that, like, positive punishment procedures rated higher than.
No, definitely.
So I can use it as well?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think the tables that I provided in the paper are not
the same.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Because I there were a bunch of tables in my research based on what I actually put in the paper.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that I'm using something that you. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
So for the questions that you have, Emily, what compliance code sections do they go with, so we can have an idea of when questions will come up?
That is on the document that I posted.
Yes, I was going to say they're in the answer section of the Q&A document.
Got it. Yep, you're right.
Okay. And so then just one other question, sorry.
No.
So when if someone's presenting their compliance code and Brandon jumps in with research, and then if I have a real-life example, then I jump in like we have been, and then after that, is that when you guys, would that be a good time?
I think so.
Yeah.
So maybe what we can do is after you're done with your section, you can at the very end say, does anyone have any questions?
Mm-hmm.
And that will be our cue, or Emily's cue, to read off the questions. And Emily, you can even be like, I don't know, it can be, I don't know, we can be silly with it too. We can be like, I just received a question from an audience member, and it says, I don't know, it's okay to have fun.
I think that I almost think that it would be better to ask the question before the research and before the visual data is given. That way, when you ask the question, if there is research and visual data, then that can be the answer. Do you know what I'm saying?
So along with like the person who actually answers the question, then Brandon and I can come in and like further answer maybe that question. Is that
So here's So how many examples do you have, Emmeline?
So like for Compliance Code 1, I only have one example, and it's for 1.2. So I wouldn't be.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all. So I only have one example for Compliance Code 1.
Okay. So what is a question that could be asked based on your example, or is it already asked in Emily's Q&A document?
It's already asked. It's the first one that you agreed to answer.
Okay.
How would the behavior analyst respond when he or she realizes that services or treatments being provided to a current client are no longer within the area of their expertise?
Yeah, so it's the competency example.
Perfect. So yeah, then before you give your real life example, that would be a perfect time for Emily to interject with that question. And then you can follow up and be like, well,
here's an example of how that would work in real life, and then if anyone else, so then if Brandon then also has research, we can like tag team an answer.
And that's debating. I love that.
Then Katie, are you going to take that question 2 and 1.4 question?
I will totally. Not the 2, but I will totally take the 1.04.
Okay. Then I can answer 1.02.
Right, along with my example.
So the first question then will be Brandon and Emma.
Brandon, do you want to answer with your research first? Or do you want to answer with your research first, or do you want me to say my example first?
Well, my research for that is that, yeah, because I have a 1.2, I believe. Yeah, see, so my research is for 1.04. I don't have a 1.02 research.
Okay, well then I'll just do my example then.
Okay, yeah, because let's see if we can find. Okay, so
So let's do this real quick then. Let's go back over Brandon's section, since we kind of seem to be in that mode right now on Sexual Compliance Code 1. So I will introduce Brandon. Brandon will start speaking, and so when are we interjecting the question? It's at the very end of his thing, right, where he's going to say, does anyone have any questions?
I think so.
Well,
or
so you're doing Compliance Code 1.02, right?
Yeah.
And then what's the next one you're doing? Sorry.
1.4.
4.
Okay.
Then I have
Okay,
research
so,
4 too.
right. So I'll interject a question after 1.02, and then I can interject another question after 1.04.
And when Emily interjects her question at 1.02, I will give my real-life example to help.
So am I going to answer and then you give the real life example, or vice versa?
I think Brandon's
you
going to
want.
answer first.
And okay, Brandon answers first, and then I'll just say, to help illustrate Brandon's point, here's a real-life example.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay.
All right, so after 1.04, that's when Emily would again interject the question that I posed, and Brandon, you can defer it to the group, and I'll answer it. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Okay, so
So go ahead and
let's start with compliance.
just read off 1.02, and because that's where our first interjection is coming in, just to see how it, make sure that we all flow properly, and then do whatever's after 1.02, and then right after 1.04, Emily will interject again, and we'll see how that goes. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Give it a try. All right. Compliance Code 1.2 is competence. Compliance Code 1.2a is the behavior analysts provide services, they teach, and conduct research only within the boundaries of their competence based on their education, their training, their supervised experience, or appropriate professional experience. Compliance Code 1.2b is behavior analysts provide services, teach, or conduct research in new areas or involving new consultation from persons who are competent in those areas or techniques. Are there any questions on Compliance Code 1.2?
I do have a question. How would the behavior analyst respond when he or she realizes that services or treatments being provided to a current client are no longer within their area of expertise?
I think that's an excellent question. I think they should take advantage of any possible training that's available, because with proper training they will get the expertise they need. And if they can't find any possible training or don't think they have the ability to do it, they can refer someone else to possibly do it who they think is capable. Also, I believe Emmeline has data to show this.
I have a real-life example about a hypothetical example for this point. Let's say a client is referred to a behavior analyst for feeding intervention. The individual is a 17-year-old male diagnosed with Down syndrome. The behavior analyst has plenty of training and work experience with feeding interventions and dietary behavior change. However, he has little experience and no training with adolescents of this age group. Also, little training with clients diagnosed with Down syndrome. So at this point, the behavior analyst would have to evaluate the situation and comply with the code of competence and refer the client to someone who has more experience in this scope of practice.
Thank you. Now we will go on to Compliance Code 1.4, which is integrity. Compliance Code 1.4a is behavior analysts are truthful and honest. Behavior analysts follow through on obligations and professional commitments with high-quality work and refrain from making professional commitments they cannot keep. Compliance Code 1.4b is the behavior analyst's behavior conforms to the legal and moral codes of the social and professional community of which the behavior analyst is a member. The activity of a behavior analyst falls under these guidelines only if the activity is part of his or her work-related functions or the behavior analytic in nature. If behavior analysts' ethical responsibilities conflict with law, behavior analysts make known their commitment to these guidelines and take steps to resolve the conflict in a reasonable manner in accordance with the law. Is there any questions regarding Compliance Code 1.4?
Yes. Actually, I have a general question for all you guys. So, Casey, you gave me a question that says, what happens if a behavior analyst is unable to follow through on commitments that they have previously made, and would they still be able to provide effective treatment? Is that the question you want me to ask, or do you want me to ask the one from the Q&A document that also involves 1.04?
Yeah, I would ask both.
Yeah, let's do both.
Let me look at the one from the Q&A. But I mean, the more questions, the better. That's what makes a debate a debate.
Okay.
Let me see it. So the question that you have, there it is. How important is honesty between the behavior analyst, and how does the behavior analyst decide how honest he or she should be? Yes, I would ask both of them. Whatever one you decide to ask first. I mean, it's whatever, but definitely.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Okay, because I have, Casey, that you're going to answer both of those. Is that still okay with you?
No, well, what I was saying before, like I said before, is that I jumped on that just because it was the fielding section. Somebody needed to answer it, and I could answer it. But I think we decided that in most of these cases, whatever the question is, it's going to be answered by that person. Unless, as of right now, we decide you'd like for example, Brandon, if she asked that question and you're like, then we can decide right now that someone else, like me or whoever, can take that question.
I can perfectly take the one in the debate fielding, the paper that Emily posted.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the other one exactly?
The one that I'm going to do.
Yeah.
It's not on there. I just added it to mine.
Oh, okay.
So
So then
you can refer it to Casey. You can just say, like you said earlier, like I am not, I'm not positive on or whatever. I'm unsure. Does anyone else have an appropriate answer or whatever?
Yeah.
And then you can just jump in.
And then I'm waiting. Am I waiting till after the questions are answered to post my reference for 1.04 or before?
What's your reference on?
In order for an intervention to legitimately be considered as an ABA intervention, it must have frequent assessments and measurements of its efficacy as well implemented with fidelity. And I also have a con of the integrity of many intervention studies between the late 80s and 2000s is brought into question, etc.
Okay. Can we ask a question on either of those?
You could say, so my con is the integrity of many interventions studies between the late 80s and early 2000s brought into question. This leads the author to come to the conclusion, well, relative lack of attention and treatment integrity. Yeah. Well, you could say that that study is almost 15 years old. Is that still current with today?
How about we switch it? How about, Emily, you say, well, I have a question. Back in the 80s, a lot of treatments came into question. How would you address that? And then, Brandon, that's when you can say, well, that was 15, 20 years ago. We've, since then developed and changed into what we are today, however you would word it. So does that sound more appropriate?
Yeah, so I think that I should say the section, and then I'll say my two resources. Then Emily, you asked a question about the con, because that is a problem with the con. I mean, it's over 15 years old, almost 20, 30. And then I can answer that question.
When's it from?
The late 80s to early 2000s.
Okay, yeah. So there's So anywhere between, like you said, anywhere between 15 and 30 years old. So it's, yeah.
Now the only so what it looks like is we have 3 questions for 1.04. Is that an overkill for one compliance code compared to some who have no questions?
I don't think so. And if we end up having to not talk about the other ones, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have to go through A, B, C, D. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe instead of doing 3 for this one compliance code, we can save one of those for the end, And then if we don't have enough,
Time.
you know, yeah, or if we don't have enough things to fill the time, then I can ask more questions.
Okay, well, why don't we save mine for the end then?
let's-
Okay.
Brandon can keep on his flow of talking about Compliance Code 1, and then at the very end, we can save my question just in case we need more time.
I
Okay.
think that's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Glad we got
So
that.
then the
figured
only, okay, so then the only question that I'll have is the one for 1.02, which Brandon and Emma have research and a real life example for. And then for 1.04 will be the honesty one. And then I'll save the other one for 1.04 for the end. Is that right?
No, you're going to ask the one about honesty. Well, actually ask the one about the con first, because I'll literally say that, and then you will follow up with the question. So it's good to do right after the con. And then after answer that question, you can go with the honesty question.
Okay.
And then the one you're going to ask Casey, save that one till the end.
Okay. Cool.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I have nowhere to be. I mean, I do, but I don't. It's almost 1 o'clock. How is everyone else on time?
I mean, I'm fine. I don't have plans.
Fine.
The only thing I got to do is take a test.
I have to take a test too. Yeah.
The only thing I got to do today.
Right.
Like I said before, I have lots.
So when
But-
when does all this have to be done by for you?
Now, but that's not an option.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so just as soon as we can.
So do you want to try to, like, do we want to try to just, like, start from the beginning, like, see where it goes? If we end it and everything's great, then that can be our final one. Should we just, like, do it as this is our final one and see what happens, or no?
I would rather just as quickly as we can go through Compliance Code 2 and 4 and come up with just a couple of questions based on the research and the examples that you guys have. That way Emily can appropriately interject and you guys can appropriately back it up with either the research and or the examples.
Okay.
So can you guys think of any questions looking at the research and the examples that you have that you can give Emily a question?
I for sure already have 2 questions for 4.08. And then
What are the questions?
they're posted on the Q&A
Oh,
document,
yeah,
but
that's right.
it says, does the behavior analyst have to directly plan or oversee all possible reinforcement-based behavior change interventions before designing and implementing punishment procedures, or can data be taken by other professionals used to rule out the benefits of these reinforcement strategies?
And so
And then the other one is, how long should a punishment procedure be in place before the behavior analyst discontinues its use?
all right, so in those 2 questions, we would just have Maida, you would just kind of reinforce, I guess, 4.08 to answer the question. Is that what would be done?
Yeah.
Cool. Are you cool with that,
What
Maida?
about, what about how long should a punishment procedure be in place before behavior analysis continues its use? Because there's not really a time.
Right.
And you can say that. I mean, that's part of the real life conversation, I guess. So that would be
Okay.
cool. You can say, that's a difficult question to ask because it really would depend on the client and the punishment procedure and the problem behavior that we're looking at. But I guess you can also refer, because Emily put 4.08D. So I guess looking at that one as well, which is...
Yeah, because all it says is punishment procedure should be discontinued when it's not necessary anymore, so.
So I guess my question is more specifically, how would a behavior analyst determine when it's no longer effective.
So
Got it.
in 4.08D, it does say that you have a plan prior to implementing the aversive procedure. You already have a plan in place that
Mhm.
you know when you're going to discontinue it. So I guess just saying something along those lines that would make sense. So
Like when
Okay.
specific goals are met, it depends on the behavioral definition. All that kind of stuff would be all included in the plan, so you could always talk about that stuff too.
Okay.
Also on 4.08, am I saying my reference research before or after the questions?
what is your research? Which point is it for?
4.08 is the
I didn't know if it was for one of the specific like ABC or if it was just for the whole thing.
just the whole thing for the most part. The 4.08 con is the Sunland Miami scandal, which is use of punishment. And then the pro is the purpose to find a correlation between treatment and outcome, and positive reinforcement is used over punishment.
Okay. So what two questions could we come up with so that we can bring in your research then?
Well, a question that could be posed from the 4.08 is the same thing. I think that's from the 70s, the Sunland Miami scandal. Now that's 45 years old. I mean,
Right.
that was when applied behavior analysis was literally in its infancy, and there wasn't enough research done on the effects of punishment. So I think that would be an excellent question. It kind of is similar to the one in 1.04. This has to deal with punishment, but still, it's because the study's old.
Right.
And then 4.08, the pro, I don't really see a question from that.
Okay. So Emily, can you come up with a question regarding that Sunland Miami case then? Just like, well, something along the lines of, because of all the aversive procedures used back in the 70s, how do I know that, the treatments used today are going to include non-aversive techniques and that the aversive treatments are not going to be long-lasting and humiliating, etc. Just like they were in the Sunland Miami case. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Sorry, I was writing.
No, I got it. Yeah, you're fine.
So, yeah. So I'll just say, because of the aversive procedures that were used in the past, specifically in the 70s, how can someone today be sure that punishment procedures are, I don't know, like not harmful to the individual?
Yeah, that's perfect. I love that yeah. I mean, Maida, can you answer that question? Do you feel comfortably, or would you like Brandon to take that?
Yeah, I think I can actually answer that with my pro research.
That would be
Okay.
great.
Because instead of just
Perfect.
punishment, the purpose of applied behavior analysis today is to find a correlation between treatments and the outcomes, and then this usually leads to positive reinforcement over punishment, unless punishment is the only scenario plausible to do what is needed.
Super cool. So
Perfect.
when you
So
ask
then I
that
would,
question, Emily, excuse me, Maida, if you want to either deflect to Brandon and just say, well, I think Brandon has some research to answer that question for you.
okay.
Does that sound good?
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I would only be answering 4.08D.
Sounds right.
Okay.
And then when should I'm just going to interject at some point at 4.08 to show that table from the Reed and Levitt paper that those resources, Casey?
Okay, so a question I guess that could be asked with that one is, well, I've heard that, because that is one of the myths that I presented in the paper, is that I've heard that therapists prefer to automatically go to aversive techniques just because they work faster.
Right.
And then that's when you can interject Emmeline with the data that you have.
The table and just show and just say that reinforcement procedures are actually rated, according to this study,
Right.
are rated higher, are more ethical ways to treat behavior.
And what?
Oh, I mean, just that they're more ethical and that they actually can be like show quicker progress.
The non-aversive procedures?
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll just, I don't know if I should I leave the table up for like a couple seconds so whoever is like viewing the debate can like watch it see it for a minute? I mean, not like long, but like a few seconds while I'm talking.
Yeah, just leave it up for however long you talk about it. Only because if you want, I can answer that question too, since it is if you want to present the table,
Okay.
I can answer the question because, I mean, that was part of my research that I did.
Yeah, if you want to answer it, and then I can just interject like after you and just say, here's a visual supporting what Casey's answer. Does that work?
Yeah, so what will happen is Emily will ask the question, Maeda can deflect to us, and what I'll do is I'll say, well, Emmeline actually has some data to show that shows that based on the DeGeneres, Reed, and Lovett survey, therapists, in fact, prefer using non-aversive techniques, and so you can pull it up like as I'm talking.
Okay, will it stay up if you're talking? Will my screen stay up?
Oh, good question.
Do you want to practice it right now? Because
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think it changes to who talks.
Okay, let's find out. I'm just going to pull it up and you can start talking.
Okay.
So it's up now. Do you see
There
it?
it is. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I see it.
Yep, it's only up whenever you're talking, Emmeline.
Darn, I thought so.
But so
You're right.
mine, because I clicked on Emmeline's little box at the bottom,
Yeah, so it'll
it doesn't
freeze,
change. It doesn't change, like it stays there.
but I don't know
I can see it.
I don't know how that works with the recording. Like,
Well, I think the recording's coming from you. Like, you're the hub, right, Casey?
I think so. I guess if I click on it, that is what will be recorded.
Okay.
And if we all click on it, then it has to show it. So I think we
Right.
should click on it.
It'll
Okay.
show up at some point. Well, okay, so we'll just do that. So I'll answer the question. I'll say that you, Emmeline, have a table. I'll click on the table, and I'll talk about the research. And hopefully we can keep the table up for a second.
Okay. Sounds good.
It'll be great. So, okay. So I'm sorry, what compliance code was that, just so I know when that's coming up? 4.08?
Yeah.
Okay, can we go over 4.08 just in the order that we're going to do it? Because 4.08 now has like 4 questions.
Yeah, it's getting complicated, which is good. I think it's good to have all that back and forth, but we should probably practice it.
No, I completely agree. My computer's going to die. I need to go grab my charger.
Okay.
So
We'll wait for
I
you.
want to go ahead and take it away. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay. Okay.
So we're going to go over 4.08, and then do we have to go, and then and then we'll wait.
Okay. Do we have questions yet for your part, Emily?
What was that?
Sorry.
Do you have questions yet for your part? Okay. Now correct me if I'm wrong. Like, we don't need a question for every point.
No.
So like you could potentially go through yours without any if we don't have any. Like, it's not like each point requires a question. right?
Right. Yeah. I honestly feel like having, how many questions do we have for point one? We have already 2 questions for
Yeah.
compliance code 1. And then there's an extra one at the end if we need it. So technically 3. We already have 4 questions for compliance code 4.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, I have 2 more questions, and actually one of them is about compliance code 2. The one that, how would you handle discussing a client in regards to whatever?
Yeah.
That deals with 2.06, which I'm not discussing, so I feel like that would be in the fielding part at the end, just because nobody can interject with that if I'm not discussing that part of it.
Right.
But, I mean, I do feel like we have tons of questions. We have like 9 already.
Right. So you could potentially go through some of your compliance codes and, like, you could pose, like, does anyone have any questions? And we might not have any, which is fine. I feel like.
This thing only has to be, like, half an hour.
Yeah.
And without having any questions at all, we were already at 18 minutes.
But it was really boring and there was no debate going on.
Right. No, I'm just saying, like, adding all of those questions, like, will take up a lot of time, so I don't think that there's anything wrong with, in some portions of it, people not having questions.
Like, Casey, when you were gone, I had asked Emily if we had questions for her points yet, for her compliance codes, and we don't, which is, I think is fine that we don't have a question for every compliance code. Like, if she says, finishes talking about 209 or 211, and we don't have a question, like, I think that's okay.
I completely agree, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Definitely.
I think we should have one question at least for compliance code 2 in general.
I mean, I would think it would be good to have at least one.
We do.
Oh, well
Like,
then,
we need one for every one, but at least one for 2 by it.
We have one, and it's about the like discussing confidentiality one. So if
which is up from 2.06.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we have one, then that's fine.
I mean, it won't be brought up during the compliance code 2 whatever. But that's one of the ones we were going to leave for the end, just because I'm not discussing compliance code 2.06.
Okay.
Does that work?
Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was just a question that you made up afterward.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, so do we want to go through, like,
4?
real quick? Or, guys, I think we kind of went, did we not go through 4?
No, we didn't go through 4 when you were gone.
Just kidding. Okay. What do we need to go through 4? Because I know that I'm answering one question from 4.08.
I have research.
And then I have a table that I'll present.
And then, so Brandon, you have research, and Emmeline, you said you have an example?
Just the table that,
That's what I thought.
yeah,
Okay.
Is that for 4.02 or 4.08?
4.08.
I think everything is for 4.08.
4.08 and 4 are pretty popular.
Fine, that's
Very
okay.
important section.
Yeah.
So Brandon, what was your research on? I can't remember. Did we create a question on your research?
Yeah, so it's going to start out with, I'm going to interject with the con with the Sunland Miami scandal.
And I'm going to say, because of the procedures used in the past, in the late 70s, is that the one that I asked?
Yep.
Like after the con?
That's it.
Okay.
Sweet. I love it.
Okay, so then after we're done doing that, Brandon, you're going to answer that with your pro statement.
Yes.
And then I would just pose another question.
Well, so I'm going to say the con. I'm going to say the con, and then you're going to pose the question, right?
Yep.
And then I'm going to answer with my pro. Okay.
And then after that, does anybody have a preference on which question I ask next? Or doesn't matter?
It'll depend on time, I think. So we'll see where we are at on time. And yeah, because once you're done with your questions, I'm just going to read a really brief conclusion that includes kind of a thing from the thing that you brought up, Brandon, the study, the evidence-based comprehensive treatments, that one by Sally Rogers and Laura Vismara. What year was that from? I don't think I copied that. Do you know?
Just a second. No,
But
I don't.
that's like at the very end. That's like your conclusion part of it, right?
Yeah.
So while we're still discussing 4.08, because we had listed like 4 questions for that same point, and so far we've addressed like one of them after the con.
Okay.
So after that, I can then ask the one, how long should a punishment procedure be in place before the behavior analyst discontinues its use?
Okay,
Is
Yep,
that
and that was the one that Maeda said that she could.
I'll answer that one.
That one.
okay? Cool.
Just a quick question. When am I interjecting my first, the con for 4.08?
So right after I read the whole thing.
Like after, like the whole thing?
Like
Right.
yes, I'll read part A, B, C, and D.
Okay. We're good.
Okay.
Okay, so then I will just do the one, I'll ask that question, you'll answer with your pro, and then I'll ask the one that Maida is going to answer. And then do you want me to leave out the one that I already wrote about, if they have to directly plan or oversee all that stuff, just for time's sake? Do you want me to leave that out?
And then if we need it, then we can ask it later.
Exactly. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Maida has her last point for 410.
Yes.
And I have an example, a real life example for that one. So
Perfect.
What's your real life example?
it's just about, so it's just referring to a client's motivation. So to not use harmful reinforcers. So like the client is has a dairy allergy, but he's highly motivated for ice cream, and so it would be unethical, even though it's really simple. But like it's unethical though for the behavior analyst to use that motivator because it could potentially cause long-term harm to the client physically. If you were to
maybe we can pop up a question then there, Emily. You have a question from a parent who is concerned because because she has heard that therapists use candy and other sweets in order to motivate their child, and this parent is not okay with that. So then maybe, Emmeline, you could pop up with your life situation of what should be done.
right.
So this is after which point? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to organize. I feel like I went from 5 questions to like 15.
It's 410.
Okay. So after 410.
Then I just talk about how the BCBA should like conduct a reinforcer assessment to determine other options for reinforcement.
Okay, so Emma, what question do you want me to ask you?
So Casey just asked, like, pose a question. A parent has a question about therapists wanting to use like, sweets or candy to motivate my child, and they're like not okay with that form of reinforcement.
Okay.
So what would happen if I'm not okay with that reinforcement procedure? And then I could chime in about my real life example.
Just giving like a situational question, like in a situation that a parent has a question about a particular reinforcement being used, like such as sweets or candy, how would a behavior analyst handle that situation?
Yeah, because it's nothing to do with harmful reinforcers. So.
Okay.
Cool. I think we're good. Do you guys think we're good?
Yeah,
Like not 110,000%, but like.
And then after that, we will have a conclusion.
Yeah.
After we're done with point 4, is that when, Casey, then will you say, like, are there any additional questions over anything we discussed?
Yeah, I'll do that if we have time. If we don't have time, then I'll just go straight into the conclusion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, which I feel like we won't have time.
Yeah.
I know, I feel that way too.
Which I'm totally fine with.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think that'll be good. Anything before we actually do this?
You guys want to go over 4.08? Because I feel like it's a really loaded code.
Definitely.
Sure, let's do it real fast.
Just 4.08 though, not the rest of 4.
Yeah.
Okay. 4.08, considerations regarding punishment procedures. Part A states that behavior analysts are supposed to choose and recommend reinforcement procedures instead of punishment procedures. Part B states that in the case where punishment procedures are necessary, behavior analysts will take additional steps in order to make sure that appropriate behavior is being reinforced. Part C states that before considering punishment procedures, behavior analysts ensure that reinforcement-based procedures have already taken place. And this is different if behavior is dangerous and needs immediate use of punishment procedures. And Part D states that behavior analysts have to provide additional training to those that will be implementing aversive procedures, and aversive procedures are to be discontinued when no longer necessary. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, first I'm going to say that I have research.
Okay, perfect.
For a con for 4.08 is in the late 70s there was the Sunland Miami scandal. There were aversive procedures that were applied to individuals with autism, which included forced public masturbation, forced public homosexual acts, physical abuse with a wooden paddle, and other worse aversive procedures were being conducted as well. This was conducted by Bailey and Birch, this paper, in 2011.
I have a question about that. Because of the aversive procedures used in the past, specifically in the 70s, how can somebody be sure that punishment procedures now that are used now won't be harmful to the individual?
That's a great question, actually. So we have to remember that the Sunland Miami scandal was in the late 70s. Now, in 2015, that is almost 45 years ago. Actually, it is roughly a little over 45 years ago. Today, applied behavior analysis uses a more scientific approach which finds a correlation between different treatments and perceived outcomes, and with that, use positive reinforcement over punishment. Punishment is only used in worst-case scenarios where positive reinforcement just isn't going to get it done, and the safety of the client is at risk if we don't work fast. So it's about positive reinforcement now instead of punishment. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I actually do have another separate question, though. How long should a punishment procedure be in place before the behavior analyst decides to discontinue its use?
That's a great question. So there's not really an answer to that question because it just depends. You never know when a treatment is going to last, but behavior analysts already have a plan in place prior to implementing the procedure, and the plan should include when the punishment procedure will be discontinued. Do you have any other questions?
Guacamole.
No, that answers my question.
Okay, perfect. So let's go. Okay, so then, so now we go to 4.10.
Mhm.
Okay.
Is there an example? Isn't there a real life example for 4.8 or no?
For 4.10 is the real life example.
My bad.
Okay.
So I think we're good on 4.08?
Yes.
I guess I don't remember. When do we use the table, or are we saving that for the end of?
I was going to say, it sounds like we're saving it for the end because the question that you were supposed to answer, Casey, wasn't posed. So we just didn't do it.
Okay, I think that one should definitely take priority because it has a table, and we are required to show
A visual.
like at least 2 visuals, I think, or 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I would put that one as a do the Sunland Miami, then do the one with the table, and then maybe we can save the one that you posed to Maida for the very end.
Okay.
Sounds
Does that
good.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I know. That's why we're doing this. Okay. Okay. You good?
Yeah, hang on. I'm just trying to like organize all of this. I'm really sorry.
You're fine.
So are we going to do this is a final unless something bad happens and then we start over?
I think
I think
that would
that's
probably be the best.
Yeah. Is there a way? Well, never mind.
To edit it? No.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, I don't think that there is.
Because I know it's live, but on some of the debates that we watched, I feel like that were examples. I don't know if they were just put together by Dr. Kim for examples, but they some of them seemed edited. So I didn't know if that's something we could do or probably not.
Probably not.
Especially that would take a lot of work afterwards. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably just what happened is that she, edited it afterwards, and yeah.
Okay. We'll just get it all.
So,
And we can take our time, and there's no rush, so it's not like we have to be,
Right. And I'm going to be keeping track of the timer. So if we get to a point and we're 30 minutes in and we haven't, done the majority of the things, then I'll probably interject as the introducer who is supposed to make sure that things stay online.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just randomly say okay, we're about, just so everyone's aware, we're about 20 minutes in, or we're 30 minutes in, or something like that. So
The grade 25 to 35 minutes, right? For 5 points?
I'm sorry.
Or is it 25 to 35 minutes for 5 points or 35 to 45?
30 to 45.
All right, so we just want to hit that 30-minute mark.
Right.
Yeah, we can do that easy.
I think so. We'll see. It'll
Yeah.
be good. So, all right, so I'm going to stop this then, and then we're going to have to do a whole nother one, and we'll start from the beginning, and we'll do that.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. All right.